Hello, everybody. Sam here, and we gotta talk about Men's Adventure Quarterly #1. This was published in January of 2021. It was published by Robert Deis, I believe that's how his name's pronounced, and Bill Cunningham. This series, Men's Adventure Quarterly, was a series that, I say was, it's still going on. It's a series that's focused on republishing fiction and nonfiction from men's adventure magazines. And these were the magazines that were kind of the follow-up to the pulp magazines that ran from the late 1890s to the late 1940s. And men's adventure magazines were very prevalent in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. And they were kind of the, like I said, the follow-ups to pulp magazines, but they did sort of have their own interesting style. And this was the first issue that Men's Adventure Quarterly put out that was reprinting a lot of things from those Men's Adventure magazines. And they always have focused them around a theme. Like this particular one is Westerns. They did another one with spies. There was another one with UFOs. And the one they just recently did, I got a little while ago, was with Bigfoot. So a lot of disparate concepts, but very much things very much covered in men's adventure magazines. And since it was June on the Range, I figured that this was a good time to talk about this one. It helps also that it's the first, so this will be easy to do follow-ups to. Just go down the line of their releases. So, and the reason that they did Westerns is that, well, to put it simply, Westerns were still huge when men's adventure magazines were going on. Because, remember, 1950s, age of television, age of Westerns. 1960s, still plenty of Westerns. And the 70s was when Westerns were starting to peter out, but there were still plenty of them around. And this was thus a common discussion point for men's adventure magazines. Since Westerns are big on TV, why not talk about them in the magazines? So that was one of the main reasons they did that for this first issue, because there was a lot of material to pick from. And now the foreword to this one is by a man named Paul Bishop. I believe he's an author. And he was also the host of the Six Gun Justice podcast, which is a podcast focused entirely around Westerns. And he also put together the Hot Lead magazine. A couple of their issues I'll be reading for June on the Range 2 this year. Both Six Gun Justice and Hot Lead are now defunct. I haven't heard anything from them. When I checked the website for Six Gun Justice, it was nothing had been updated since like 2023. And Hot Lead, I can only find the issues that were released a few years ago. But yeah, so he's the one who does the foreword. I have actually got multiple Men's Adventure Quarterly issues, and I think I have all of them. But the funny thing is, I actually have. This is the only one I've fully read, because every time I get a Men's Adventure Quarterly, I get through the first few articles, or get to the articles that look really interesting based on their descriptions, and then by the time that happens, the next round of Men's Adventure Quarterly comes out. So I'm like, so I put them to the side, get the other one. So this is the only one I've fully read now. And like I said earlier, this gives me an excuse to read the full thing the full series of Men's Adventure Quarterly and do a series on them in this BookTube channel. So you can expect more Mac tales in the future. So before I talk about the good and the what I think works and what doesn't in Men's Adventure Quarterly #1, specifically titled "The Most Wanted Wild West Issue," I thought I would briefly describe what's in the quarterly magazine, and I'll first describe the fiction pieces. The fiction in this, going down the list, is The Old Shell Game, which is about this female gunslinger who confronts a con artist in a saloon. Next one is Trigger Happy Marshal, which is about this brutal Western marshal who decides to go outlaw when he realizes he can take an outlaw gang's loot and take over the gang himself. There's also The Cowboy and the Dance Hall Floozy, which is about this desperado who gets held hostage in a life and death poker game because there's a dance hall girl who has a vendetta against him. Another one is Say No to Lori Lee and Wish You Were Dead. Exciting title. And that one's about this Texas Ranger who's chasing an outlaw, and when he corners him to the town he thinks he's in, he finds like 14 dead guys hanging from a bridge, and he has to kind of figure out what's going on with all these dead guys, and it turns out the town is some strange characters in it, and I'll leave it at that. Another great title, Terror of the All-Girl Posse, which is where this female sheriff takes over a town and puts together this group of female deputies who run the town with a iron fist and brutally execute every criminal they come across. Like I said, a very bombastic story concept. And the final fiction piece is Shootout at Mad Sadie's Place, which is about this outlaw who goes to the town that his sheriff brother had been working in, and where the sheriff brother was killed, and the outlaw brother starts going on a revenge quest to execute the desperados who shot his brother down. So those are the fiction stories. The non-fiction pieces are one is Madams of the Old West, which is kind of meant to talk about the strange relationship Western towns had with their madams and harlots. Basically talking about how, yeah, they were women of ill repute, but they had sort of a complicated relationship with the men who were in these boom towns or far out western places where women generally didn't go. And the other nonfiction piece is The Gunman Who Killed the Critics. And that one is about James Arness from the TV show Gunsmoke, one of the most popular westerns ever made. And it basically describes Arness's role as Marshal Dillon, and describes James Arness's history, how he got into acting, and how it eventually led him to Gunsmoke. So those are the two purely nonfiction pieces. But then there's this other category of stories that I call fiction stories based on reality. And essentially, they're fictional stories featuring real-life people. And it's basically the writers taking real life people and figuring out these new, this sort of stylized way of telling their stories. And these ones include Bloodiest Mass Murder of the Old West, which is an exaggerated telling of Charles Stanton, who was this town boss in Stanton, Arizona. And it's all about how he took over the whole county by raping and killing everybody in his way. Not the sunniest story, and according to the commentary in here, probably not accurate to what the real Charles Stanton did. The second piece is Saga of Buckskin Frank Leslie, which is about this gunslinger in Tombstone by the same name, and basically showing his descent into alcoholism and adultery as he starts going crazy. And the final piece is The West's Wildest Hellraiser, which is about Clay Allison, who was a gunfighter in Texas who got into these wild conflicts with knives, guns, and even his own fists. So all of those stories are based on real people, but one thing that Paul Deis makes, I'm sorry, I got their name mixed up. The thing that Rob Deis, Rob Deis makes clear is that, these nonfiction stories are very stylized and exaggerated, probably not fully accurate to what the real life people did. And as for what else is in the magazine, there are some galleries. One is called the MAQ, Men's Adventures Quarterly Gallery, gal-lurie, because it focuses on women. And this gallery focuses on the pinup model Julie Redding, who was also an actress, apparently. She was in a couple of B movies and television shows. And the other gallery is just one that shows, that one shows art from men's adventure magazines with Western themes. You know, they have cowboys and gunfighters on them. It's just sort of showing those covers and artwork. So those are the contents of this magazine. So what works with Men's Adventure Quarterly number 1? I think what really works is that Rob Deis and Bill Cunningham chose a lot of great pieces for this particular collection, both in the fiction and nonfiction, because there's actually a very wide variety of Western stories here, and they are somewhat violent and somewhat sensual, but they are very different in their execution between each different author. So they are very effective in what they set out to do. In regards to the fiction stories that I really liked in this collection, I would say the standouts for me are The Cowboy and the Dance Hall Floozy, because that one is a really good revenge tale. It has a great build-up about this desperado trapped in this nasty situation, but we later learn there's a good reason he's in this situation, and the build-up is very well done, so I really like that story. I also really liked Say No to Lori Lee and Wish You Were Dead, because it's a good story with just the right amount of sleaze. It's a very sleazy piece because the male main character shall we say, gets familiar with two different women in the story, all while he's being while the threat of hanging is hanging over him. And in the commentary, they mentioned that this was a kind of a story that foreshadowed the later adult Western subgenre that started popping up in the 70s. Because apparently Lou Cameron, who was a huge figure in adult Westerns, did it. Lou Cameron made Long Arm, Renegade, a couple of other adult Westerns. But this was the story he did before he started focusing on those. And reading that, I'm like, yeah, that sort of seems in line for an adult Western writer. But it is a well done piece. So I really enjoyed that one. It's probably my favorite out of the bunch here. The other fiction story I really liked was Shootout at Mad Sadie's Place. Because, again, just like the Dance Hall Floozy story, it's a great revenge tale. You sort of see the brother and how he plots to take care of the gang that killed his brother. It's a very clever... He's not necessarily a super genius, but he's got enough sense to know he can't fight him dead on, and he finds clever ways to take care of him. There's a big gun battle in the end, too, of course, so that's a lot of fun. And supposedly in the commentary, they say that story might have been one of the main inspirations for the Clint Eastwood Western High Plains Drifter, because supposedly the script writer who did High Plains Drifter was associated with some of the men's adventure magazines before he was doing a whole lot of screenwriting. So High Plains Drifter is a very good Clint Eastwood Western. And seeing something that, if the story did inspire it, that's good. And I'm okay with that because the story is good. So that was a lot of fun. The nonfiction pieces with the Madams of the Old West and the James R. Ness article, those were really good too. Because I kind of liked how Madams of the Old West sort of showed that complexity of the harlots and the madams, sort of showing, yeah, they were scandalous women doing scandalous things, but they did have these outbursts of charity and open-heartedness, and sort of showed how they were the nurses, they were the caretakers during like outbreaks of smallpox and things like that. And there's one point where the writer points out, yeah, a lot of these women were held up very highly in their community until civilization came, and then all of a sudden the good citizens couldn't be seen with those madams. It was like just kind of that sort of showing the hypocrisy of like, yeah, these women were great when it was untamed Westland, but when civilization came, they were not to be loitered or associated with. So that was kind of an interesting study on how different society reacts to certain people in certain circumstances. I also really liked the gunman who killed the critics because it really gave me a good understanding of James R. Ness as an actor and as a person. Because I didn't watch a lot of Gunsmoke growing up, but I was aware of it, and I saw a couple episodes, and James R. Ness was a very striking figure, because they mentioned in this one that he's like 6'6", so in 1950s it'd be wild if he didn't play a cowboy. But it did give some interesting insights to his personality. So that was a very cool read. Uh, out of those out of those fictional stories that were based on nonfiction people, probably my favorite one is the saga of Buckskin and Frank Leslie, because it really helps show. Excuse me. It does a good job of showing his mental state. It does a good job of showing how, with every gunfight he's in, he's slipping into alcoholism and madness, and it doesn't just like feel like it's there for shock value. It's there to sort of be a character study about how someone who lives by the gun does enough bad things that it starts affecting him mentally. So that was a very strong story, and I really enjoyed that one out of all the non-fiction pieces that were based on real people but not history. They were kind of exaggerated tales. In regards to the galleries, I think the galleries all look fine. I think the one of Julie Redding is very well put together. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, it's somewhere around here. Okay. They do a good job sort of showing her different covers and different pinups. But, yeah. And the one that focuses on Western art is really well depicted. Because you get fantastic paper on this magazine. I really like this I really like the format of this magazine because it has this very smooth cover, nice and glossy, and the interiors are just really well put together, from the text blocking to the actual illustrations. So it's extremely well designed and well formatted. All of the art is very striking, but it's also very easy to read, which is always a plus. So no complaints in regards to the formatting and art design for this. Bill Cunningham did a great job with the art design. So when you have a great art design and great story selection, it's an overall great experience. So in regards to what doesn't work about the collection, the big thing is that like a lot of story collections, you're always going to have some stories that are weaker than others, and that's just the nature of a beast with every story collection. You're going to have some stories you like more than others that like fire on all cylinders, and other ones that don't. That's kind of like what it was with the nonfiction stories. Well, the fictional stories based on real people. I mentioned I liked Buckskin Frank Leslie the best because the Charles Stanton story and the Clay Allison stories, they're okay, but you know, it's just kind of the thing of Charles Stanton. It's just a terrible guy getting worse as it goes on, with no redeemable features. And the Clay Allison is just basically showing every single wacky, violent scenario he got into. It's like they don't feel as focused as the Buckskin Frank one. I would say that none of those stories were bad. I will say the one story in this book that I don't think entirely works is, sadly, the one I was hoping would be the most effective, and that was Terror of the All-Girl Posse. Because it starts off with like this great setup, this whole thing about an all-female gang of brutal law enforcers And it's promising this like kind of wild excess. Like, oh, like the opening scene is about features an outlaw about to be hanged, but he has one final request from the all-girl posse, which is intimate in nature. But the all-girl posse leader, the sheriff, agrees to it because she's executing her duties as the county sheriff. It's like, okay, it's getting amusingly sleazy. But after that opening scene, it kind of gets a little by the numbers. It doesn't quite rise to that level of grindhouse sleaziness that the opening is promising. And it kind of ends on a whimper. It just goes, oh yeah, after this one event, they broke up. Everyone kind of went away. One of them died by a firearm accident. That was it. It's like, it's just such a weak ending. It doesn't live up to the bombastic nature that the story and concept, the opening of the story and the story concept itself was promising. So I would say that was kind of the worst story in terms of what was promised and what the story actually delivered. Again, and that's not really a criticism of the collection. I understand absolutely why that story was chosen for this collection, particularly when it's got such an eye-catching cover. Because this is the cover. All these angry girls with this man with the noose around his neck. It's like, oh yeah, that would catch my eye too if I saw it on newsstand. So I absolutely get why it's in here. I just think it doesn't fully live up to the expectations it builds. So the final ranking. I rank on the 5-star system, 0 out of 5 being the worst, 5 out of 5 being the best. And this was a very easy ranking for me because I had not many things wrong with this. This was an easy 5 out of 5 star ranking, which in my mind is an excellent book. Because despite that one story that I thought was kind of a clunker, the magazine does have great stories. And even the ones that aren't great are still very entertaining. And it's got such an excellent art design. Bill Cunningham did a great job with this, and Rob Deis did a great job too with selecting the stories. And I didn't talk about this, but there's also every single article always has this prologue put in by I believe it's generally Rob Deis, and it does a great job in all these pieces sort of explaining the history of men's adventure magazines and what were featured in them, and explaining their influence upon popular culture. Like the one story I mentioned of Mad Sadie's Place and how that might have influenced High Plains Drifter. Or the Laurie Lee story that talked about how that was sort of Lou Cameron's, one of his early works before he sort of broached into the adult Western series that he was working on. So this isn't just, oh, these are good stories collected. There's great history in this, and it really helped me understand the influence of Westerns during the period of men's adventure magazines. So absolutely incredible output, in my opinion. One of the best historical story collections I've seen in a while. So very excellent. I would highly recommend this for anybody who's interested in men's adventure magazines. I also think anyone who's like into pulp magazines would find this interesting because these are sort of the descendants of those older pulp magazines. Obviously, a little grittier, a little more sensual, but I think a lot of pulp fans would like this. And also, if you're somebody who's into like sort of the grittier age of westerns, I think you would really enjoy this because these stories really lean into it. So, yeah, highly recommend this issue because I think it's absolutely fantastic. Any inspiration? For those that don't know, I'm a working writer, and whenever I do these reviews, I like to bring up whether these stories that I've read have inspired me in any way and given me any ideas for stories. And I have to say, this one absolutely did. I got multiple ideas of stories about here. So many that I'm not even going to mention all of them because I was kind of like, oh wow, that's a pretty cool idea. Uh, uh, the some of the ones I will mention is that the article about the madams of the Old West, I actually was writing down like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool, and so I actually have about a trio of stories that I was kind of like, oh yeah, I'd like to focus those stories on Wild West madams. Those could be really interesting and effective. So that article of Madams of the Old West gave me a lot of ideas. There's also the one I mentioned, the Trigger Happy Marshal. I really like the idea of like a brutal marshal who's like running a town, and then he becomes so brutal that there's pretty much no difference between him and the outlaws, and he just switches sides. I'm kind of like, oh yeah, that's a pretty cool concept. I remember there was a episode of some TV show, some Western TV show that had, I'm sure it's a concept that's been used multiple times in Westerns, but I'd kind of like to do it in my own way. And the stories of Lori Lee, the all-girl posse, and the bloodiest mass murder of the Old West, those three are kind of concepts that make me want to write Western tales with similar premises to those. Because I actually have this female cowgirl character I've really been wanting to write. And I'm kind of like, oh yeah, those kinds of tales would be pretty cool. That could work for this kind of character to be involved in. So I'm kind of like, oh yeah, that would be a pretty neat concepts to use for this cowgirl character. So I'll probably be using them. Like I said, I'm not going to every single story inspiration this collection gave me because it's a lot, but there were a lot, and this was one that made me go, oh wow, yeah, there's a lot of great Western stories still waiting to be written, and this one made me want to write them. So that's very cool. Probably the most inspiration I've gotten from a review I've done on this channel in some time. So all right, well that's all I really have to say about this first issue of Men's Adventure Quarterly. I'm going to get on to finishing the others in the series. Probably going to do them in order because I want to finish reading them in the order they were released, and finally finish the ones that I've only perused. So you can expect those reviews probably sometime in the coming months. But yeah, I'm going to try and get those done. And I really hope we find some more good readings for June on the Range. So, huge thanks to Robert Deis and Bill Cunningham. Great collection you guys put together here. And I can't wait to see the rest of them in the coming months. Some of them I have seen already, but I hope to read through them all finally. So, thank you very much for watching, everyone, and I will see you in the future. Bye.